Before I get into my actual review, I just want to apologize because my mic already went out, which I literally bought a week ago when I started this YouTube channel, so now I'm going to have to use my webcam mic, which isn't going to sound nearly as good, but I get my new mic in just a few days, so again, just bear with me. But onto the movie. So a few nights ago, I decided to watch A Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time. I was scrolling through HBO Max and I just found it and saw it was leaving on Halloween. So I was like, why not cap off the season with this film? Because it's one that's been on my watch list for a long time. Mainly because of just how cool of a concept it is. A killer who kills people in their sleep. It's something that plays on our natural fears because it's something super personal. Like, you can't avoid sleep. It's a part of life. It's a part of what we do every day. So playing on natural fears like that is really an interesting concept, a killer concept, if you will. And it was something that I immediately saw a ton of potential in. You could tell from the thumbnail, this movie didn't really work for me, but it kind of proves to me that Wes Craven's a masterclass when it comes to directing horror. Just the way he captures the atmosphere in this film, it's so eerie and so unlike anything I've ever seen before, and it's something that stuck with me. And obviously the standout of the film is Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, who completely embodies the role. He's just creepy and has this aura about him that no other horror icon that I've ever seen has captured. And the makeup and practical effects for him are incredible. Like, just the image of him is something that will stick in my brain forever. And I don't know, I just really dug that part of it. The score was something that also really surprised me about this film. It added to the atmosphere and made it even more eerie than it was. And it's a score that I can replay in my head already. Like, it was that memorable to me. I don't know if I'm going to check out any of the future installments anytime soon, but I've heard he only gets better and like crazier and wackier. So like I'm definitely curious to check those out, but again, I'm not sure if I'll check them out just because this is one of the most popular of the franchise, and I don't know if it works for me exactly. While it didn't work personally for me, I definitely see why it works for a lot of people. Just, again, Freddy Krueger is super iconic. There are some really iconic scenes. Again, I'll mention the atmosphere. And there's just so many images in this film that just stick in your brain. Not just Freddy Krueger, but like scenes that just have iconic shots. And the concept, again, is amazing. And I don't know, like I really see why people like this movie. When it comes down to the reason why this movie didn't exactly work for me, it pretty much all comes down to personal preference for the most part. Now, I do have some like legit criticisms of the film, but for the most part I've noticed a trend, and I've just started watching horror movies like not that long ago, and I've noticed a trend that if a movie relies more on the horror than it does on the deep characters and story, and this film definitely has, you know, fairly deep characters and a fairly compelling story, but if a movie relies more on the horror than it does those other two things, then usually for me, I have a harder time getting into it, if that makes any sense. I just don't get scared of horror movies in the traditional sense, so they usually have to have something a lot deeper than just the scares. And now obviously I could definitely get uncomfortable in a horror movie. Autopsy of Jane Doe, random movie I'll throw out there, but this movie just didn't have a whole lot more than scares to keep me entertained. Now, there were definitely some tense scenes. I can't talk. Definitely some tense scenes, but most of them I thought were a little bit over the top. I'll start off my main criticisms with the opening of the film. The film kind of starts to derail me straight from the start, simply because of the setup. It kind of jumps straight into the concept of the film, which worked for me in Scream, which is another Wes Craven film, obviously, but here in A Nightmare on Elm Street, it starts off with our main characters, and we never truly get to see their lives beforehand, like before everything starts happening. So like, you never get to see the true psychological impact that all of this had on them, and it made it hard for me to connect with the characters. And even aside from that, I didn't think the acting was great, obviously with the exception of Robert Englund. Now Johnny Depp's okay, but he doesn't get a whole lot of standout scenes, so there's not much to say there. But our main group of characters, particularly Nancy Thompson, who happens to be the main character, I didn't buy their fear, and I just didn't think that any of them portrayed fear in a real way. Like, it removed a lot of the tension for me, and just made it hard for me to again get into the film, because obviously to get into a movie you have to buy the performances, you have to buy in a horror movie you have to buy the fear, you have to buy just everything that's going on, and for me this movie kind of failed in that aspect. Now maybe that's a little bit harsh, because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think most of these performances were like first time big roles for most of them, but it didn't help the experience in any way. It still had the same impact. I also wasn't a huge fan of the tone. I think the campiness and the horror kind of clashed with each other, and in a lot of scenes that were supposed to be intense, I just didn't feel the intensity or the tension, because while Freddy Krueger was creepy in his own right, the scenes that he's in are often, again, way over the top, and it just made it hard for me to take them seriously. Now, obviously I mentioned the iconic scenes with the iconic imagery, but most of them don't play out in the movie in the way that I think they should. They again just kind of clash with the tone and aren't as effective as they would be for me. Another thing that kind of bugged me that kind of correlates with the opening of the film is that the film never really gives any time to explaining the nature of Freddy Krueger, his motivations, why he's doing what he's doing to the people he's doing it to, and it was something that kind of bugged me throughout, and I was expecting it to be more explained by the end, and it really wasn't. Like, there are some things that explain a few points of his nature, but none of them really explain fully in depth why he's doing what he's doing. I could see this mystery being a positive for most people, but for me it was simply just a bit frustrating, which is definitely another personal thing for me. It all leads to a third act that kind of just goes a little bit even more over the top and ridiculous, and kind of just soured my opinion on the film even more, unfortunately. The way that Nancy Thompson tries to deal with Freddy Krueger I just didn't find particularly interesting, and the way she eventually starts to handle him I felt was anticlimactic and almost felt like a writer's block moment to me. I'm gonna get a lot of gripe or hate for this in the comments, but the way she deals with him just felt like a writer's block moment to me, because it kind of comes out of nowhere and it's super sudden. It almost has a feeling to it similar to a movie I watched earlier this month, Chapter 2, where it doesn't feel like that's where the movie was going at all. Now, I liked the actual ending to the movie, like the final scene. I thought that was a clever way to end things, but the actual end to the climax was just not it for me. Really, at the end of the day, this was just a film that came down to personal taste, and it was just another one that unfortunately just doesn't really work for me. I again see why people like it with all the iconic stuff, but for me personally, it just wasn't one of my favorites. Now for the content, this is definitely an R-rated movie, and it comes down just to the violence and gore. It's not super like over the top, but there are some really bloody moments in particular. The movies, obviously, there are some intense scenes. Most of them are pretty campy, which is why I didn't rate the intensity higher, but for language, there's a few F-bombs, like 4 or 5 maybe. And then for the sexual content, there is a scene, and it's one of the more iconic scenes of the film. And you'll know exactly which one I'm talking about if you've seen the movie, but you definitely see some nudity, and it's brief, like it's not super detailed, but again, it's there. Now, I really contemplated really uploading this video or not, just because I know how hot of a take it is, but I thought it would be a good one to upload just so that you can kind of see what my tastes are like early on my YouTube channel, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that even for people who like the video, that you can kind of see where I'm coming from. I see why you people out there who like the movie, I see why you like it. But for me personally, it's not a movie for me. If you want to see more content like this, then like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. I love reviewing movies, as you can see. I've reviewed the first 3 Alien movies, and I have another hot take there with Alien 3. If you want to check those out, they're on my YouTube channel. You can also check out my website, which is also on my profile page, and also all my social media links. I hope you enjoyed this video again, even if you completely disagree with me. But yeah, that's really all I have. See you in the next one.